could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
I would live in New Zealand.
New Zealand?
Yeah,
Why?
because the nature out there is gorgeous. It has the water, it has the mountains, it has the waterfalls, it has the forest, the hiking places, and the healthcare out there is outstanding.
If I could live anywhere in the world, I would want to live in Greece. Feel like it's a beautiful place. It's romantic. Feel like it's always a great romantic movie happening in Greece. So feel like the romance is turned up a little bit when you're in Greece. So
Yeah.
I want to live in Greece.
Okay.
And if you're listening to the podcast, comment a place that you want to live. And please share the podcast and let us know. And we'd like to welcome you back to the podcast. I'm your host, Nate.
And I'm Michaela.
Welcome back to Where To From Here podcast. This episode is probably going to be very vulnerable, and that's where we wanted to go with this podcast. Be real, be honest, be vulnerable. And we're going to talk about when God says no.
Yeah, it's a tough topic.
It's very tough because God, we always say God is a God that always blesses and gives, but sometimes God takes away. Sometimes God simply says no.
Yeah.
So we're going to read, starting off Isaiah 55, 8 through 9. I read, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." I don't think I like that his ways is higher than mine. That he has final say, but that's the honest truth that
Yeah.
he's sitting in a higher position. And when I announce that he is my God, that he is Jehovah Jireh, that he's my everything, I gotta submit my ways
Yeah.
and my will and my dreams and my goals to his dreams and goals for my life. And that's kind of a battle and a struggle that you will have submitting your ways, because sometimes you work so hard to just achieve this goal.
Yeah.
Then God said, "Hey, that's not the plan I have for your life." Then it's like, what do you do? Like, I've dedicated all this time, and
Right.
now you're trying to change the trajectory of my life that I've said, that I've worked hard for, that
Yeah.
I planned, that I had blood, sweat, and tears. And God said, "Hey, it's
No.
time to change that. That's not what I have planned for you and my kingdom."
Yeah. I feel like lately, especially, we've had quite a few no's from God. We've had our yeses, though.
Yeah, it's always good to have a yes.
Those yeses have been really encouraging, but the no's have been kind of, you get a little like a pain in your side a little bit
Yeah,
whenever
like that
those
thorn
no's.
in your flesh.
Yeah.
And you have like regret sometimes. Like, I've been there and done that a million times. Like, as a kid, as you're growing up, we're all programmed to have this mindset of, hey, this is what I want to be when I get older. Like,
Yeah.
we have these career days and we dedicate a whole day at school trying to program an idea and spark something within a kid. Say, hey, you can do this, you can achieve this, like, this can be your life.
Mhm.
And we program that into our kids. And I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, we should have people want to be doctors and teachers and
Right.
firemen and policemen. It's important to invest in the next generation. And I understand career day is very helpful. I mean, when I had career day, I thought I was going to be a software engineer.
Mhm.
I thought that was my goal in life. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to program games. And I actually went to school for that, but it was a journey.
Yeah.
I When I first went to college, I dropped out, not because of my grades, just because of situations. I didn't have transportation, and I really didn't care. I had to grow up. I was still young. I just thought I could just breeze through that. But it was an eye opener because I had more responsibility on me, and I had to step up. I had to want it,
Mhm.
and I didn't want it at the time.
Yeah.
Even though I was there, I thought it was cool that I'm in college, but I didn't want it. I didn't dedicate time and practice and study. So I just went there thinking I was going to just fly through it like high school, but it was an eye opener, right? And so I went, dropped out, went to trade school for heavy equipment, which I loved.
Mhm.
I graduated for heavy equipment. I love bulldozing. That's fun to me, knocking down trees. What I miss the most is the smell of the grease that you got to pump into the equipment, to the machines. Like they have like these little holes that you grease up, make sure the machine's running good. I remember one day I didn't have gloves and it just was all over my hands. I just love that smell.
Mm.
But I ended up going to trade school. So my path is like kind of crazy. And around that time, I was dedicating my life to God again and finding who I was in Christ.
Mhm.
I remember my car, 1995 Buick Roadmaster, had some 24-inch rims, but I had the Bible in my car. And everybody knew that it was something different about me, just how I act. The teacher was like, "Your dad's the preacher." I was like, "Yeah." He said, "You're a good guy. Like you don't cuss, you don't do all this." And so it was like, "You're different." I'm like, "I know."
Yeah.
He said, "What denomination?" I was like, "I'm apostolic." He said, "Oh yeah, you one of those weird guys. You talk in tongues. Y'all do that crazy stuff." So you not scared of that stuff? I'm like, "No, man. I've been around it my whole life, but my path was a little bit different. It's a
Yeah.
lot of hiccups, a lot of obstacles I had to go through to get that final goal was to graduate in computer programming. So I ended up going back to college in 2017, the fall. And I think I graduated with my associates in the beginning of 2019. Well, 2020. Yeah, 2020. That's when my father passed away.
Mhm.
And a lot has changed since then and now, who
Yeah.
I am. So God has definitely changed the trajectory of my life. I am not even working in my field that I've had student loans for,
Right.
that I stayed up late for, that I cried about, that I invested in. Like I'm not even
Yeah.
nowhere near that field. And it's kind of like a lot of regrets. If I could do it all over again, I'll probably be working in healthcare, probably be a nurse, something I know that there's always a high demand for. So if I could do it over again, I would probably be like a nurse or something, or working in healthcare, or X-ray technician or something like that. Because the field I chose is kind of a hard field to get into,
Yeah.
and it's not aligning to what God has for my life as well. So it's a lot of stuff to unpack.
Yeah. I would have been a forensic analyst.
Really, you could
Yeah.
do it all over again.
If I could do it all over again. So, kind of a similar story a little bit. I was in high school and we actually did like a personality test and what career fits your personality. And it was in science class, and my teacher goes, You literally have two different personality types. So you have all of these careers that would really work out for you. And I was fascinated by that. She was fascinated by it because she had never seen, somebody that is literally split down the middle of two different personalities. And with that, like, it was weird because through that one time, she and I actually formed a little bit of a connection. And so I had her for biology and then I had her for anatomy and physiology. And the more that I formed this bond with her, the more I ended up going, oh, I love science and I love anatomy and physiology. And then I love doing like criminal science because that worked into it a little bit. And so I just like really delved into science. I loved it. And I've always been somebody that loved like NCIS, CSI, all those shows
Yeah.
growing up. And so I looked at it and I'm like, this is what I want to do. And so right after high school is when my family and I moved to Tennessee. And so I took a break from school all the way up until COVID hit. And then when COVID hit, there's something here called the Tennessee Promise. So you get to go to college for 2 years free. And so I was like, perfect timing. There's nothing to do.
Right.
So I applied for a school that I thought had the program, or they told me that the program was going to be available the next year. And I'm like, that's perfect. I'm going to get my prerequisites out of the way. I'm going to go into this program. And so that's what I did. I focused on my prerequisites. And then at the end of that year, they were like, the program is going to be put off another year. It's not ready yet. And so that was just like one of those times where I was like, that's a no. And that's a devastating no because I thought I was on that path to go towards my career and towards my passion and everything like that. And um yeah, it just really kind of stunk. So there was nothing else I wanted to do, so I was just like, you know what? I was working at the time. I'm just going to focus on my job, and I'm going to drop out of school since the program isn't available. And if the right time comes, then maybe it's a not right now and not a no. Um, but I've honestly not even had the passion to go back into school necessarily for that.
Yeah. So when I graduated, I had a job offer to go to California, work program analyst. It's amazing.
Mhm.
But at the same time, that was around COVID.
Yeah.
So it kind of ruined all of my plans. And then my father died. And so now I got to deal with grief.
Mhm.
Now, at the same time, my church needs me to be more involved. And around that time, I just dove right into being available for my church for everything. We upgraded equipment. We
Mhm.
went through a lot of changes with services, trying to make sure we're safe, trying to make sure we're able to produce a better live stream because we were having trouble with live stream, trouble with our Wi-Fi. And so I just gave all of my energy into that, and it was a very challenging time because at the same time, like I said, I'm dealing with grief. I'm dealing with a lot of regret for my career. I got student loans now. I'm not. I don't have a job. I'm just serving my church, serving my mom at the restaurant. So I
Mhm.
don't have a true job to where I'm making money, and I'm sacrificing. And people, people talk. I know, understand that people talk and say stuff, and I know I wasn't to their eye living up to being a man, but I
Mhm.
made a lot of sacrifices like nobody understood that.
Yeah.
And it was definitely a challenging time. We had a lot of hurdles we had to get over with equipment from the church and live stream. Like one service we did a live stream, we did a parking lot service, and we transmitted the service through the radio all in one take. So it was like we had three different outlets and one take at a service. Like it was crazy. I didn't
Yeah.
understand that we will be living a life to where we're live streaming parking lot service and transmitting into people's cars and
Right.
radios. But we had to do what we had to do at that time. It was scary. And one of our mottos, me and Mac, my best friend, my brother, was like, we just gotta be better than last service. And so that mindset started in 2020. Like I got to be better than the last service, no
Mhm.
matter what. So that was always my goal to be better than the last service, and kind of like God now steering me into being more involved in leadership,
Mhm.
being more burdened down with this is what I want to do with my life. I want to give myself to God. I want to serve in the kingdom. I want to serve in the ministry. So whatever I have to do, this is my path. This is what I feel like I'm called to do. But I never felt like a specific thing that I was going to be called to do. Like I
Mhm.
never had those moments where I'm at a prayer meeting, God said, "Hey, you're going to be an evangelist, a preacher." Like I never had that.
Yeah.
Like for me, I was just making myself available.
Yeah.
Like I started off in the sound booth, like putting up lyrics on the projection. That's what I started
Yeah.
off at. Like I didn't even sing in the choir. I hated singing in public because
Wow.
crazy, right? Because I'm a big guy. I didn't want to wear suits. Like it was a whole big thing. But sometimes our lives, excuse me, we can plan our lives and what we want to do with our lives, like career, like our goals, like we want to have families and all that. We can plan all that out, and we just leave a small, slim room for God's plan
Yeah.
and God's way. And then when God says no and interrupt our plans, we get upset. And we get thrown off. But it's
Real
because we never even allow him to have a say so
yeah,
in our planning. And it just interrupts everything that we had going on. Like for me, I would rather be computer programming at a company somewhere in California.
yeah,
But now I'm here. So I look back when God says no, dealing with grief and not leaving. Like if I would have left California, I would probably never even have met you.
yeah.
Like I would never
Well,
be here.
maybe.
No, I don't think it would have happened. Like that's how I think. I think if I went to California, I would probably want to be even in a church.
Yeah,
And so all these times
that's true.
that God says no or change the trajectory of my life, even if it's life changing, losing a loved one, like it all leads me here.
Yeah,
All of the delays, all of the no's, all of say, hey, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to go this way.
yeah,
And in the moment, it was painful. It was a lot of friction because I want my way. But God says his way is above all.
yeah,
And so I have to submit to that. If I want to be a Christian or I want to be called to serve in the ministry, I have to submit how I feel,
exactly. Yeah,
submit my way. Like it's always going to be about him. If I'm truly saying that, hey, it's about you, I got to give that up. I got to give up my dreams and my goals. I got to give all that up.
yeah,
If it don't align to what God wants for my life, and I call myself to be a minister of God, a man of God, I had to give it up. And it's been a lot of tough no's. What about for you?
yeah. I would say that, like, even as a teenager, I remember that I was like wanting to focus more on God. And I thought the only way that we were going to do that is to go to Bible college because you were talking about like how you weren't called or you didn't have a specific
Yeah,
calling. And I think that a lot of people go to Bible college just to get that calling or just to, what is God's will for my life in ministry, you
right.
know? And so I thought that I was going to go to Bible college. And sometimes I wonder, what if I went to Bible college? And when we did move here to Tennessee, I ended up going to a church that had a lot of ministers that are actually now professors at some of these Bible colleges. And they literally said to me, Michaela, you don't need to go because what you would get there, you have here.
Right.
And it was just one of those moments where I was like, "Well, what about the social aspects of it also, you know?" Because I'm a shy to myself person, you know. I have my moments where I'm great one on one, but if I'm in a big crowd or if I'm doing public speaking, I get really shaky where I just like shut down a little bit. It becomes a lot. So sometimes I wonder, okay, to me, that was a no. That was people who I respected in my life saying, being used of God and saying, hey, this isn't for you. But that's why I said, well, maybe we would have met because if we both went to Bible college, maybe we would have met in Bible college. We really don't
No.
know.
We probably went to two different Bible colleges.
Probably, yeah.
What was a big no that God did in your life?
My biggest no would be when it was also during COVID. I actually had my first real relationship and I was 27 years old. So when I was 14, I went to my parents and I said, "Hey, according to you, what age can I date?" And they said 16. I was like, I'm going to be smart. I'm going to finish high school at least. And I'm going to wait to have a relationship because I want to make sure things are in order. Like I said that for myself. And like I said, when I was a teenager, I was all about God and focusing on the right things and things like that. And still am obviously all about God. But um, I 18 came and I went on one date with one guy and it didn't go well and I was like, well, that's not for me basically. And I said no to this one guy and but I was ready for the right guy, I thought, but it turned into a no for 9 more years.
Wow.
Like it was just no relationship, no nothing. It was literally me and God, and I had my friends, and I was like, at times I'd be like, what's wrong with me? And I really had to find myself in God in those years. And so COVID came, and there was this guy. He and I just started talking, and we ended up dating for 20 months, and it ended in terrible heartbreak. And honestly, the entire relationship was heartbreak. But I thought who I was, because I was waiting for 9 years. I was ready to date for 9 years. I thought I was already who I needed to be for the man that God had for me. So I thought, this is the one. And I had prophecies over my life, and I was like, he's going to become that person for my prophecy, and we're going to live this great life for God together. And so when that ended, I thank God for it now. Absolutely, 100%. I thank God that that relationship ended. But in those 20 months, at the end of that, going 20 months and then all of a sudden it's just over, it was a tough blow, because I went back to being single again when I thought I had it all figured out. But in reality, I was just trying to shape it into what I knew God would have for me with you.
Yeah. And I think going through the worst heartbreaks leads you to the right person. I
Yeah.
went through a lot of heartbreaks,
Yeah.
a lot of like wasted time, I feel like. And I reflect on those moments like, man, what if I would have met you sooner?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what our life would have been like? And I just have these hypothetical moments like we'll be better off financially and
Yeah.
all these things, but that could not be true. Like, I won't be the man that I am. I won't have the heart that I have, the love that I have for
Right.
you if I would have met you sooner. Like, all the heartbreaks that I had made me the man that I am. Being told that I wasn't enough, being told that I wasn't man enough, or
Yeah.
being told that I wasn't handsome, being told that I'm not the right guy.
Yeah.
It all led me to you. And that's it's probably not like the biggest no that I have, and I'm gonna dive into my biggest no. But all of those moments, every turn, if you think about it, it makes us stronger. Obviously, it can make you weaker, depends on who you are.
Yeah.
But for me, it just added a new perspective. It made me closer to God, all
Mhm.
those heartbreaks. So I don't take, like, if I had to go through it again, I would. It made me who I am,
Yeah.
and it led me to you. So as hard as it was, I will go through it all again. And so my biggest no, I get my minister's license. I always was a guy that think outside the box
Mhm.
with everything. Just a free thinker. I'm always thinking of how I can improve, how I can incorporate new ideas. And one of my biggest like things since I was young, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, I always wanted to include everybody or be included. So I always wanted to be involved in the church since I was a young person. So
Mhm.
this opportunity arose to be a part of a bigger role in the section. And I've made connections with a lot of different churches in the section. People knew who I was because I sang. I'm like, man, this would be a great opportunity to actually have influence.
Mhm.
Like, I know I have a lot of great ideas, a lot of things that I want to do. And being in this role, I will be able to do that and make an impact.
Mhm.
Like, that's the only thing with me. Like, I'm not looking for glory. I'm not looking for all this. I just want to make an impact on churches,
Right.
not just my church, but a whole section. Like, And that to me would have been essentially like a mountaintop for me if I would have got that opportunity. So I put my hat in the ring. It's like I know I could be good at that. Like I know if people give me a chance to be like a director or something, I know I'm gonna be great at it.
Mhm.
It's just how I feel about myself because I know who I am. And this kind of scary to some people that I'm confident. Like I know who I am,
Yeah.
but that's just how I was raised. And I just remember one night just praying and God just influencing me with like this idea of if I was at this position, what I would do. And I made like a list. I remember the night I prayed. God spoke to me. I felt the Holy Ghost. I'm like, man, this is it. This is my moment. This is my time. This is what I've been waiting for.
Mhm.
So I wrote out these plans, and my whole theme of the my campaign, if you want to say, was impact. And I made these goals. I was like, I want to develop and invest in the next generation. I want to develop more Bible study teachers, prepare musicians and singers of this generation, give them all the resources they need to impact the world. I want to develop missionaries, ministers, and help worship leaders become better.
Yeah.
And I lay down these goals and like help them identify their gifts, provide exposures, like building bridges with other churches and making those connections and teaching and making conferences out and have those young people preaching at these events to give them that exposure and having this crazy idea like have a just a random Friday night shock. That's why I call it Friday
Mm.
night shock, where we just go to a church. We don't know who the preacher is, but it's going to be somebody that feel like they're called to preach, and we're going to
Excuse me.
give them that opportunity to be used in a setting like that and to speak into their peers. You all right?
Sorry.
It's all
You're
right.
choking me up. It's so beautiful. Okay.
And just create small groups and community giving, like give back to the community. And I was uplifted
Yeah.
and I knew God spoke to me. Like I knew this was supposed to happen. I felt it in my spirit. These ideas just started coming and all of these amazing things I want to do. I'm like, man, I'm going to impact this generation. I'm the perfect person for this. Like, this is who I
Yeah.
always wanted to be and have all the resources and the responsibilities. Like, this is going to be it. This is my moment. So we have the vote come up. I'm excited. I have this confidence in God. I'm like, I'm about to be the next person. Like
Mhm.
it's about to be my moment. And I just feel it all over me. We go to the voting and they announce that, hey, who wants to run for this position? A lot of people spoke up. Then I spoke up and people looked. I thought they was like, hey, I know that guy. Like I made a lot of connections with the preachers in this section. Feel like I would have been good. But they came out, they announced the voters just like tied. I wasn't even in the top three. I was like, oh my
Mm.
devastated. Like, God, you told me this, you gave me this, you inspired me to
Yeah.
and encouraged me to be this person. Like you gave me the vision, you gave me the ideas, it all came from you. Then this person wins. And I remember as they won this voting, I just sat there with my head down, just disappointed
Yeah.
and upset with God. I'm like, God, I could have been the person you wanted me to be if I would have got this.
Yeah.
I could have made changes. I could have made impact on young people's lives. I could have helped bring more exposure to their lives and enhance their ministries and push them to be something different, push them outside of their boundaries. Like I
Yeah.
know I would have made such an impact, and you didn't allow me to win. And I didn't clap my hands or I didn't support the guy who did eventually win. And my pastor at the time looked at me. He said, "That's not how you do it. It doesn't matter that it didn't go your way. It doesn't matter that God said no."
Yeah.
And I remember just in tears and crying. And I had this feeling like undervalued. Like all my ideas, all this stuff I have, I'm never going to be able to use them in the kingdom if I never get chances, if I never get the opportunity to be used.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that I still struggle with now. Like I just want the opportunity to be who I was always called to be.
Yeah.
And that moment broke me because it was finally a time to be who I think I know I can be.
Yeah.
But God said no, He had other plans. And I didn't know how to handle that at the time. I was very upset with God. I was upset with my pastor. I was upset. I was like, you could have campaigned for me more and tell people more because apparently you can't tell people that you want to run for a position. You can't do that. And I'm not going to get into all the logistics of everything because I'm not here to cast any bashing on anybody. Like the guy who got it now, he was called to be that. That's God ordained him to be in that position.
Right.
So it was a moment that I felt like I was always going to be in this box, never giving any responsibility, ever having the power to make decisions, to have influence, never being able to use my ideas. And moments like that don't come along too
Right.
many times. Like, and that spirit of just, whoa, little me, like, I'm never going to get that chance again. I don't know how life is going to be now, but I know if I took that position, I wouldn't be able to leave and move to Tennessee
Yeah.
because not too long after that, I ended up meeting you,
Right.
and my whole life changed. My whole life changed,
Yeah.
and so because God said no, it led me straight to you. And to this day, I still think about that because I'm like, man, would have been a great, great opportunity.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's not what God has planned for your life.
Right.
Many times we try to fabricate our plans to fit God's plan.
Yeah.
Like that's not how we're supposed to do. We're
No.
not God. We don't need to create opportunities. God's gonna make room for your gift. Like it's not time yet.
Yeah.
And so I'm still learning. I'm still evolving in my mind and becoming a better person
Yeah.
and just growing and adding more tools to my belt.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready.
And it's hard because, like, I think in both of our situations, you had these thoughts that you wanted to impact generations, and that's what you're supposed to do. We're all called to minister and to serve others, and that's really what you wanted to do. That's a God thought. And even the things that I was thinking I was going to do with this other person, I had God thoughts and I had God actions toward this person as far as, forgiveness and mercy and compassion and all this stuff. And I was like, that's why I was like, well, if it's so easy for me to demonstrate God's love and to do this way that I know is right and according to scripture and all that, then it must be the way it's supposed to be. Same with you. I mean, you knew you were just wanting to be a servant. Ultimately, you were wanting to impact the world. Ultimately, and that's when it becomes hard. Is because you compare what you're thinking to scripture, and you're like, this has to be it.
Yeah, it has to be it.
And so when God says no, it's like, but I'm going according to your word. Like you want to have this, but I'm doing all the right things. And sometimes God is like, oh, but my ways are higher
Yeah.
than your and my thoughts. And that's what's crazy is you have to have a thought before it becomes a word. And I know God's the same yesterday, forever, or yesterday, today, and forever. But His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. So anything that we think according to what we see in the Word, He still has higher than that for
Yeah.
us.
I can't find the scripture now, but it says his ways are good and acceptable and perfect.
Yeah,
So it's got to be good, it's got to be acceptable, and it has to be perfect. It had to align. Those three things have to line up.
yeah,
And so, even though it was a good opportunity, it was not perfect.
right. I want to say it's Philippians 4:8.
And I remember talking to my best friend, my brother. I talked about him earlier, Mac, and just being frustrated with the process of moving here and going from being this involved in church to like this little
Oh, yeah.
margin and not being involved. I'm like, what's the purpose of all this? Like, God knows my heart. Like, how do I get through this? Like, what's the reason? Why should I keep coming here? Why should I want to invest
Mhm.
in this? And he gave me this analogy. Basically, he was like, you went from totally different spectrums of being involved, and now you're not involved at this time in this moment. It says one day when you are that pastor over a church, you're gonna look across that desk at a person, at another Nate, and be able to
Minister.
minister to him and understand where he's coming from because you've been in that moment.
Yeah,
You've been in those shoes. So you're gonna have another Nate that you're gonna minister to, and only you will be able to minister to him because you've been in those shoes. You've been in those moments
yeah,
where you feel small and you have these great ideas, you're in a box and you're not involved and you want to be involved and you know your heart is all about other people and yet you're not given the responsibility. When you look across that desk one day and look at another Nate, you're going to be able to witness to him and understand who he is. So all these little obstacles that I've had, all these no's, all of these delays, these obstructions that I have, it's going to all be for God's glory to minister to someone else.
right.
You going to read that?
Yeah, so the verse is actually Romans 12:2, and it says, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God.
So you can have a good will of God, you can have an acceptable will of God, but I want to have a perfect, I want to be in his perfect will.
Yeah,
And sometimes being in his perfect will is him telling me no, him telling me you're not going to get the job, him telling me you got to move here. But I want to be in the perfect will of God. And sometimes being in the perfect will of God comes with no's,
yeah,
comes with delays. But you got to continue to trust God in
yeah,
that. And you'll get through it. And one day you're going to have an amazing testimony. You just keep walking. You don't give up. Don't ever quit. Don't ever give up. I don't care what has happened in your life. One thing about Job that I find is amazing. I don't know why I'm talking about Job, but he went through a lot of hardships in his life. He was upset at God. He lost everything.
yeah,
Everybody preach and shout about the moment that he gained everything back. But what about the moment he's lost everything? He never stopped talking to God.
right,
Don't ever stop talking to God. I don't care if you complain, you upset. Don't ever lose your relationship with God. You continue to talk to him through all of the uncertainty, through all of the trial and all of the chaos. You don't ever stop talking to God. You let him know you're upset. You let him know that you're disappointed. you keep that relationship with God
Mhm.
in the midst of everything, because that moment that you're in, it's going to be a testimony one day. You just keep walking, you keep trusting in God. Even when he says no, you still continue to worship. You still continue to show up and make yourself available and make yourself a willing vessel in the middle of all your no's. So my only encouragement today is when God says no, continue to serve him faithfully. Continue to be a good Christian, a good man of God or woman of God. You continue to show up and you have constant communication with God in prayer, that God give you strength to overcome this. God give you strength to keep going, because it's going to be hard. Not everything is running through the field of roses and sunflowers and everything's perfect. I don't
Right.
care. It's not going to be perfect.
No.
But in the middle of all
Mm.
that, God's going to be with you.
It may not look perfect in the time, but it ends up being his perfect will.
Yeah.
If you say no to if you hear the no from him and you bow your will and say, I say yes to your will, to your ways, that is what will lead to the ultimate perfect will of God for your life.
Yeah. So we just want to say, just keep going, keep pushing. You may be full of a lot of questions. You keep asking those questions of God. He may not answer. You just keep showing up. You just keep knocking, and you'll get through it. Thank you all for listening. Peace and love.